Hello and welcome to our virtual event. This is Aaron Goldberg, contributing editor for IDG, and I'll be your moderator today. It seems that almost every organization is focused on expanding their customer base and adding new customers as quickly as they can. This helps to drive improved business results and provide the foundation for sales growth. It's an easy management goal to implement, but it may require some new thinking for IT as older infrastructure may not be up to this challenge. There may be issues with storage being able to scale quickly to support new customer growth and possibly not being able to provide the application performance level that customers demand. The answer for many IT organizations and the companies they support is to move to the cloud to provide better scalability. With new capabilities that dramatically improve performance and support consistent data management across cloud platforms, it's now possible to truly embrace hybrid cloud and utilize cloud services sooner and much more effectively. To help us understand this topic and how to move forward, we're fortunate to have an expert speaker with us today. Jeff Whitaker, Senior Manager, Cloud Solutions Marketing from NetApp, is with us. He'll help us understand how you can move forward with cloud services more quickly and more effectively. But before we start, just a couple things about our event that can help you get more value from it. First, and I actually believe this is a best practice for those of you in our audience, and that is to download a copy of the slides, the PDF, from our resources area. And there's three reasons I think it's so important. First, it's a great place you can take notes as we go along. Second, it's a persistent reminder of this event you can use in the weeks and months to come. And third, and maybe most important in my mind, is that you can share it with your peers in your organization so they get value from today's event as well. In addition, while you're in that resources area, there's also some other valuable informational assets you can take advantage of. I'd like to thank our sponsor, NetApp, for making today's event possible. So without further ado, we're going to move forward and into the presentation. But Jeff, as we get started, one of the best ways, I think, to kind of see what's going on and really visualize this in a problem and solution focus is a real-world customer example. Can you take us through what somebody's done with this technology?
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. So I agree with you. That's a great way to get into this. I wanted to talk a little bit about one of our customers. It's a global automation services company that they serve about 10,000 customers. But what they do is they're really a leading worldwide automation company delivering services, very simple services, to their customers that give visibility into the identification and the cultivation of new prospects. So really a marketing tool set, and they offer a host of services. And what they do is they do these services from a cloud-based environment, for automation, for analytics, and other different customized services for their customer sets. And they're serving the needs of pretty much everybody. I mean, anywhere from consumer, financial, manufacturing, telecom, right? They're hitting a lot of different customer bases and really working them, giving them the services they need to help address their customer sets. And they do this through a number of different channels, whether it's either direct to their customers or through distributors or resellers, a lot of different ways that they get to their customers. But as I said, 10,000, a huge customer base that they're dealing with. So some of the challenges that they're running into is really addressing this global market, right? This global list of customers, and they've got to deliver services to everybody. And what it's done is it's really driven this mandate to move their application and their services into the cloud, but they need to do it without rewriting everything, right? They've got a large base of applications and services that they offer their customers, and having to go through and redesign and re-architect everything would be not only financially large, but time-consuming as well. So making that move into the cloud with as minimal of effort as they possibly can. And they need to do this as well to grow their business, right? So by delivering custom services out of their data center, there's a certain size customer that they struggle to reach, which is those small and medium-sized companies. So moving into the cloud gives them an ability to address that smaller customer base by utilizing the resources in a much more cost-efficient manner. And their data center just didn't do that, right? It was pretty inflexible, and the architecture was just too expensive to hit those little guys. And then really the core application itself was based on a file environment, right? Their data sets, all of the information that they hold upon for their customers is based on not only is it just file, it's based on a legacy file format. So trying to make that move into the cloud now it's even more challenging. And they need to address the complexities of the GDPR compliance requirements that were put in place earlier in 2018.
Can you help us better understand, the current data center-based automation architecture and what some of the potential issues are that we should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things about moving to the cloud is the cloud offers a lot of different capabilities, but when it comes to storage or data itself, block storage and object storage are the two prominent components, right? The two prominent services that you see out there. So when customers are moving file-based applications, they run into some troubles. And what they typically end up doing is they have to go out there and build the environment themselves. They utilize the compute that's in the cloud and the block storage that's in the cloud, and they run a file server on top of it. And by doing so, that may give them the basic requirement of file operation for their applications itself. And in this case, the customer actually did that and was able to meet their basic performance requirements. They got the response times, and they were able to do hundreds of thousands of concurrent customers. But the issue really came down to scale and growth to reach new customers. Right, so they built this custom environment, but now they've got to maintain it, right? So they've got an application which is to deliver services to their customers, but to do that, they had to build something custom in the cloud, which is what they didn't want to do, right? They were trying to get away from the complexities of the data center, and they just kind of moved that complexity into the cloud in a way to solve their problems. So what they wanted is something that allowed them to utilize the on-demand economics of the cloud without re-architecting, which was their initial requirement, but they were just struggling to do that at a scale that they need to really grow their customer base. So that's where we come in with NetApp Cloud Volumes. So NetApp Cloud Volumes is a cloud-native file service with very fast performance, right? And it's something that allows them to make that move into the cloud, right? In this customer's case, they had already done the move to the cloud, but it required a lot of additional work. So for Cloud Volumes, they can make this move into there, and they can do it a lot quicker and a lot easier than they had in the past. They can essentially run any workload in AWS, even the legacy applications, right? So when we're talking about this customer who required a legacy file format, Cloud Volumes brings that for them. So they get that multi-protocol support. So not only the legacy stuff, they get, today's Linux file formats, as well as Windows formats, so they can make that choice themselves for that flexibility that they need and shift their CapEx expenses to an OpEx model, which is what you really expect when you make that move to the cloud. But then on top of this, we bring a lot of our features that we've built over the years, including data protection, right? Being able to take snapshots without slowing down the performance of your applications, or to clone data sets themselves so that you can actually build new applications in the cloud at a reduced resource requirement and do it much faster, really speed up the efficiency of development. And then, of course, when you're talking about global scale in the cloud, being able to replicate across geographies is another feature that NetApp brings in with Cloud Volumes.
Can you actually tell us a bit more, Jeff, about how the service actually works when it's deployed?
Yeah, so when we're talking about Cloud Volumes, there's the simple component of this, right? This is file storage for your cloud environment. So if you're making that move into AWS, you can run the different file types. But then we back it up with really highly available and highly durable data environments. So 8 nines of durability, 4 nines of availability, right? So you can make sure that that application that is requiring its data set is going to have it there when it wants it. And then we do it at a scale up to 100 terabytes per volume, right, to make sure that you can address those large file environments, those large application requirements, to address hundreds of shares per subscription or even thousands of clients per share. So you can make this a very widely accessible data set, all depending on the scale of the environment that you're working in. And then, of course, being able to do this across multiple VPCs for your cloud infrastructure. And then, as I mentioned earlier, performance is a key component of this, right? So when we built this service, it was really around being able to address the performance of the cloud applications just like you would expect the performance in your data center. So driving that high performance level into the cloud applications just as you would in the data center itself, but also being able to do it with multiple service levels, right? So you can choose your price point and your performance point to meet your application requirements, and being able to do it at low latency so that you can get a consistent performance. And then, as I mentioned, simple on-demand file share, NFS and SMB, so your Linux and your Windows environments, and then bringing in those rich data management services for replication and snapshots and backup. And then on top of all this, one of the key things that we always require when we're looking at our data sets, especially when they go into the cloud, is making sure we have a level of security that we can trust. So data encryption at rest for those file environments. Secure multi-tenancy so that you can actually deliver out specific data sets to the target you expect. And then making sure that those file shares can be accessed based on a restricted basis, on an instance type, on an IP range, right? It's really to meet some of your global export policies themselves.
Well, Jeff, let's look at specifically at database performance, because that's really a key determinant here. Is there really a lot of gain possible in terms of overall database performance?
Yeah, so that's a great point. When we're talking about the customer here, right, they're moving a database environment. They've moved a database environment into the cloud. And when we're talking about a database, right, we're talking about the data performance underneath it to drive the performance level of the actual database application. So with the multiple performance tiers that Cloud Volumes brings, we can actually drive the performance of the data such that the compute that is running the database, we can saturate it, right? We can drive the maximum performance for your application. Data set will never become the bottleneck in those scenarios, right? So you can drive multiple targets at a single data set and really drive that performance level far more than you could have in a typical cloud resource environment. So get the performance on par with your data center, and making sure that you get that low latency, so you get those fast response times. Databases really live on getting that latency as low as possible so you can get fast response. So making sure for the data set itself, we can maintain and deliver that such that your application can operate most efficiently. And then you can scale that database, right? You can scale it to achieve the maximum data throughput. In the case of AWS, there's a 5 gigabit per second single instant limitation, and with multiple instances accessing the same data set, you can now drive that throughput all the way to the top. So when you're talking about getting performance out of your application environment, we're doing everything we can to make sure you get the best performance and make sure that you have that performance level that you would expect from a data center. So in this diagram here, we're actually showing you how the operation now works, right? So if you look here, you've got Cloud Volumes. You go out and you deploy a Cloud Volume environment, you get the data set in there, and then you just assign those data sets to your database environment, right? So you've got your EC2 node now communicating with the Cloud Volumes environment, and you're getting that performance. You're getting that performance that you would expect, much like you would out of your data center. So the same architecture for the application residing on a data center backed by file services. So in the previous design where the customer was actually building the environment themselves, their application layer still looks the same, but they no longer need to worry about all the details of creating and building their own file environment, maintaining it, patching it, doing upgrades, all those things that when you're worried about the application, you don't want to waste your time dealing with all the stuff addressing just a file share, right? Let NetApp take care of that for you. So with Cloud Volumes, we will do all that stuff and let you worry about your actual application residing on your EC2 environment, your database environments themselves.
Jeff, moving beyond just the technical benefits, what are some of the business benefits organizations will see from using Cloud Volumes?
So what drives, most businesses isn't really those technical benefits, right? Just as you had said, it is these business benefits. right? So now this customer, right, I had told you some of the mandates and the requirements and their goal of reaching new customers. Cloud Volumes has allowed them to go after this new target base, right? They can deliver very easily the file environment to back up their services, so they can do this on a low-cost, small, efficient model, so they can go after the small and medium businesses. Right? They can lower their cost of deploying their overall services, but yet they can scale it as well. So they can scale this from their small environment all the way up to hundreds of terabytes and thousands of clients. So really being able to drive that scale, but start small. And then, of course, the big one here also is reducing the development and maintenance costs by running their application in the cloud. Right? They can make that move to the cloud. They don't have to worry about all the management overhead. They don't have to do all this extra stuff. They can run it on a cloud volume. They run it now on a cloud volume, and it makes life much easier for them. And they're still able to meet their customer response time expectations. Right? Customers always expect when they're running a service that service acts in a performant way, so that they don't have to deal with lags and slowdowns. So Cloud Volumes, delivering that performance level, gives them the performance scale they need, as well as simplifying their actual deployment model, so that they now have a much broader service offering that they couldn't otherwise have done on-premise or with their custom-designed application environment.
Well, I guess, there's a lot of benefits and frankly, Jeff, a lot of cool stuff here. Let's do a short demo for our audience so we can actually see that at work.
Welcome to this quick video walkthrough of NetApp Cloud Volumes for AWS. We're going to walk through creating brand new volumes, changing the size of volumes, mounting volumes in your Linux instances in your AWS compute environment, and moving data from your on-premises environment into the cloud. We already selected a link in your AWS Marketplace, so we're guided directly to NetApp Cloud Central for configuration, which you can also find at cloud.netapp.com. So once we're logging into NetApp Cloud Central, we'll see the Cloud Volumes configuration page, and there's really only this one page that we need to go through to create our first volume. You can see here that two volumes already exist, NetApp Big Data and Machine Learning, and there's this big green button at the top to create a new volume. Let's take a look at the Machine Learning volume. This is only 1 terabyte in size. Let's say your project is really successful, you need more data. We can now change this from 1 terabyte to 3 terabyte. With one click, and it's done. It's already increased in size to 3 terabytes. Next, let's actually create a new volume. So click the green button, Create New Volume. First, we're going to provide a name for this volume. We're going to call it NetApp Jenkins. We're going to use this volume later for some DevOps integration testing. You can select different regions that are available to you. And then we can select a volume path. Now the volume path, we're actually going to provide you with a number of different choices. You can select that refresh button there on the side if you don't like that particular path that's being automatically created for you. But you can also override those path choices and provide your own path. In this example, we're going to choose NetApp Cloud Volumes. Now this volume could be created from scratch, so it's empty, or it can be created from an existing snapshot. So data that you've already ingested previously in other volumes are now available for you to create as a clone. You can select a service level, and now you can also select the size of the volume, in this case 4 terabytes. The next step is to configure your export policies. You can limit access to your volume to clients that come from a certain IP address or IP range. You can select between read-only or read and write access, and you can choose between NFS v3 and NFS v4. Next, you can also choose your snapshot policy. In this case, we're going to choose a weekly policy. We're going to keep 3 snapshots. We're going to take those snapshots on a Sunday and a Wednesday at 30 minutes past midnight. Now create this volume, and you can see in just a few seconds the volume's created and done. A 4 terabyte volume's created just like that. Now next I'm going to walk you through how to mount this volume into your existing compute instances. In this case, we're going to mount it into a Linux instance, and if you look at your volume description, you see that little question mark on the side. This will provide you with all the necessary mount instructions. You will see how to install an NFS client if it hasn't been installed already, as well as the 2 commands that you need to properly mount your file system. Now let's switch into the command line once we've copied the make directory command. So we're in the command line now. We're going to SSH into the Linux instance that's running inside AWS. Once you're logged in, we're going to switch to the super user context. And now we're going to insert that make directory command that we just copied from the user interface. So directory has been created. Now we're going to go and copy the mount command. We're inserting the mount command here. And the mount is complete. Now we're going to change into the directory. And we're going to create a 1 GB file. This is a great way to test the functionality, make sure that everything works as expected. It really only takes just a few seconds to create a 1 GB file, and it's already done. So it was created at about 118 megabytes per second. So now you have a volume created, you have it mounted, we created a file for testing purposes. So next we're going to go into the volume and look at some additional options. So we see the description of the mount target. We can create manual snapshots if we want. That's a great idea to do that before you're making changes to your data in the volume. You can see the export policy, make any changes there. You see your snapshot policy that we discussed previously. But now we also have that tab for sync. Sync is how you get your data from on-premises into your new volume in the cloud. So we're going to create a new relationship here. And this relationship will actually pull data from your on-premises data source, the on-premises host that you can find through your VPC connection in AWS. So we're going to identify the host by IP address, and we're using the export here. And as a target, we're going to select our volume in the AWS cloud. We're going to create the relationship, and it's done. Now the synchronization is running. We can now turn on auto sync, which means that you can keep your data in the cloud and on premises synchronized with each other so that updates will show up on the other side. You can do this with a daily or an hourly schedule. And that's really all there is to it. You see 3 files have already been processed. Now 5 files have been processed. So depending on file sizes and the amount of data, that can take a little bit of time. If you don't want to do this, if you don't want to migrate data over the network, if you prefer to ship physical equipment that's similar to AWS Snowball, we can do that as well. Well, that's really all there is to NetApp Cloud Volumes for AWS. It's really simple to set up and configure. We hope you will enjoy this great new service. Thank you.
Well, that's a pretty impressive set of capabilities, and clearly, one that I think has merit for virtually every organization. Jeff, let's continue kind of moving forward.
Thanks, Aaron. So, one thing I wanted to touch on, I've spent a lot of time talking about Cloud Volume Service for AWS and what it did for a specific customer, and how that potentially could translate into what it could do for you. I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the other service offerings that NetApp is focused on. One of the big things that we have done over the last number of years is take all of the knowledge that we've had and we've built up over 25 years of creating data management solutions, storage solutions for our customers, and bring that to the cloud. Right? Bring it into a deployment model that now allows you to not only do what you do in a data center, but possibly move 100% to the cloud or build a hybrid architecture so that you can run stuff in your data center as well as in the cloud. So we're coming out with other services beyond the Cloud Volume Service. We've come out with Cloud Insights, which allows you to look into how your data is operating, how your environment is working, so that you can better determine how to operate your environment. NetApp Cloud Controls for allowing you to get better access and management of those environments as well. And then a service based on our ONTAP data management solution so that you can get a consistent model of managing your data, whether on-premise, in cloud storage, or in a service delivery model. And the big focus here is really about creating the services that you need to accelerate all of your cloud workloads. So not just one or two things, right? Today we talked about database, but being able to utilize these services to speed up your file service environment, right? To address your analytics and data lake requirements, right? Analytics has become a key piece of how you manage your data infrastructure and learn from your data itself. So being able to solve things there, as well as speeding up your development environments, right? turning around application development in a much faster path, addressing the performance that your production workloads require, and then disaster recovery, backup, and archive. And on top of that, SaaS applications, right? If you're using any of those services such as Microsoft Office 365 or Salesforce, right, being able to protect the data sets that you have there in ways that you probably haven't even thought of. So really delivering a whole host of services that addresses your data needs. And just to summarize everything here, so NetApp Cloud Volumes is a service that delivers cloud-native file services with extreme performance. And when I say extreme performance, it's the performance that you need for your high-performing applications, such as this example of database environments. Databases are critical, and getting the performance that you need in the cloud is something that we really are driving for. So, NetApp Cloud Volumes is addressing those, right? It's addressing those database environments while saving you cost and manpower in the process. You no longer have to worry about the data side of things. The Cloud Volumes service will handle that. So the best way to really learn what Cloud Volumes can do for you is to go ahead and sign up and try it. Right, so you can sign up and try today on the Cloud Volumes for AWS at netapp.com/AWS and learn how it works for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. That was just a great presentation. A lot of really useful info that our audience can use to help their projects of this type move forward. Unfortunately, it looks like we've come to the end of our allotted time for this webcast. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, NetApp, for making this event possible. And, of course, thank you to those of you in our audience for joining us today. We truly appreciate the fact that you do have a busy day, and really thank you for your time making us part of it. For IDG, this is Aaron Goldberg, signing off.